Hello and welcome to Wake and Jake, a special edition, and look who's back. He was in my ear all morning, and then I started listening to his YouTube as well. Foolish Bailey is here, and we are back, Waking and Jaking, for the 2025 season. How are you, Bailey?
I'm doing very well. I think this is the year that you and I will solve the LeBron versus MJ GOAT debate.
Yes.
We will lay it to rest.
Yes.
We will figure it out.
Let's get Shohei's name out there for the algorithm early. People are now saying
Shohei, Ohtani, Roki, Sasaki, Yoshinobu, Yamamoto.
Yes.
And so on and so forth.
Yes. Any other buzzwords we can get? Is Scottie Pippen's mom still in the news? We'll circle up on all of that. Bailey, I do want to focus mostly, we'll yuck some ball along the way as we always do. You've now come out with your famous Foolish 50 list, so I want to chew through that. Giraffe Neck Mark getting in there. Okay, dog. I respect that. Bailey for clicks. Should I be yelling your name too?
Oh yeah, Foolish Bailey.
Foolish Bailey. No, it's as I do my Jake wordy, over wordy part too early, where I'm like, Bailey, it's a tough ask, and how do you compare a pitcher and a hitter and blah blah blah. I do love the top 50 list every year because it's just a fun mental exercise. Because I don't need to start with the Jacksons, as if you would have told us 2 years ago which Jackson would be on the list, we'd probably go Holiday, and now the two not center fielders, the two outfielders are on the board. I guess I'll aim wide to start. Was there anything year over year? I think I usually start here. Did anything feel different going into this year, or is it just like, hey, let's start putting names down and see what happens?
Tarek Skubal was kind of a game changer for me. I missed him last year, and it was a huge miss, right? Like, you want to get the Cy Young winners on the list, even if it's not 1 and 2. You want to get the MVP winners on the list, and you have to kind of manipulate it to give yourself the best chances of that happening. And I think with Skubal, as well as a lot of the pitchers coming back from elbow stuff, I kind of reoriented myself. I used to be big on volume. I used to be big on guys with track records of throwing, 200 inning seasons. And now I think the perspective is anyone can get hurt. So now I'm more focused on who's going to be the best inning by inning or start by start. And I think kind of the rankings with regards to the pitching reflect that. With the hitting, I think some of the bat speed stuff came into play for me this year. That's something that wouldn't have been available for use last year. And I do think there is still a lot to be gleaned from that as we move on into 2025, because now we're at a point where they have 2023 second half for that as well. So we can look at guys who are adding bat speed and guys who are, making choices to prioritize damage versus, contact, and how that affects their overall offensive game.
Yeah. It was, it's always funny because when you see the 50 names on the list, and for everyone on our YouTube, BBD will be popping that up intermittently, like our fasting. But when you look at all the names on the list, and it's like, yeah, okay, these are all great ball players, that there is the first initial of like, wait, who's missing? And your YouTube comments will let you know very quickly who's actually missing and who's not. I'll be honest, I had a weird little flinch when I was like, ooh, Max Fried not on the list. And I was like, wait, we just gave him how much? And if he's not on the list now, is he going to be back? But I guess it is funny, like you say with the pitching, which for me, that's always the toughest one. I usually say ice cream flavors, because what do you want on a given day? And on any given day, Max Fried could be one of the top 5 pitchers throwing that day. But does that get him on the list, or is it durability? And should America like Cole Reagans more? Why aren't we not more Cole Reagans obsessed?
Well, America famously did like Reagan, so we'll see about Reagans.
Reagan,
Clinton, the thing with
Bush.
It's this. Yeah, the scary thing for me is, said this a few times. Mm-hmm. This is like the classic on Cole Reagans, is that he lost the most velocity from April to September on his fastball of any starter. And so I got scared off of him, and he was kind of a last minute decision between him and some of the other pitchers who didn't make the list at 49 there. And I eventually just was like, he's got a really good changeup, and he struck out 200 guys. And even with his history of elbow trouble, like, he was able to have a good full productive season, make 32 starts. So I ended up going with him, and I hope maybe that decrease in velo is in some ways trending towards repeatability of having a season that long, right? Maybe he's taking a little bit off, as the season goes along, and we'll just have to see. I mean, he's looked pretty good early on this season, but yeah, that was for him being the first, or really I should say last pitcher, to make the list. That was a really tough decision for me.
Hey, this is another dumb one that I probably ask every year, and I'll just constantly forget and do it again. But do you just start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way to 50, or like what? What is the actual process?
So the hardest part is not figuring out where they rank in the list. The hardest part is figuring out who makes the list, right? That is way harder than actually figuring out, 1 through 50. So what I do is I start with the previous year's list. From there, I'll probably axe like 5 to 10 guys who have like no chance of coming back. So for example, like someone who had Tommy John or something like that, right? And isn't going to pitch all that much this year. They get axed. And then there'll be like new guys who are locks to the list, right? I think Jackson Merrill was one of those for me, where it's like, I don't even have to really look at it. I know Jackson Merrill's going to be somewhere in the top 50. And then from there, I'll just start to kind of take it position by position. I'll have like a group of pitchers who were borderline that were on the list, and a group of pitchers who were borderline who weren't on the list, and I'll start to kind of rank them out how I would do that. And yeah, because it's really just figuring out who makes the list. And then from there, it's almost like you do a draft, right? It's like, well, here's who I think is the best player still available, and here's who I think is the worst player still available from the pool of 50. And they kind of meet in the middle, like the transcontinental railroad, and we drive in the final spike at around 25.
God, all these buzzwords for clicks. Transcontinental Railroad. We get on Railroad YouTube finally. Did we discover there is Railroad YouTube videos that have the most views?
And transit YouTube is very popular.
What is that? Am I doing something wrong?
Here's the thing. I've dabbled in that area.
Yeah.
Not in terms of information, but I do enjoy watching a video of a train from time to time. Some people might be able to diagnose that as something, but I enjoy the railroad.
Hey, a lot of people are watching. Again, some of the highest views I've ever seen on YouTube videos. Train content. I guess comment below your favorite. Bailey, you did open your video by saying you're not doing any honorable mention this year.
Right.
With that, I'm mentioning the not mades, the guys who have fallen off the list. I guess I want the initial name of your regret or couldn't get on this list. The one that you were like, I wish it was Bailey's 51 for Bernie Williams this year.
I'll give it to you. I'm going to say Christian Walker.
Okay.
I don't know if Christian Walker was specifically 51 for me. There were a few other names kicking around there. I just felt like he is the one first baseman, and this might bother Trev, because I know Trev's a big first base defense guy. He is the one first baseman to me that has game-changing defense, that has like that tier above all the other first basemen in terms of how well he plays that position. I like the fit with him in Houston. I like the Crawford boxes. I don't think this is Jose Abreu whatsoever. I know he's a little older. I think he's probably been a little unlucky based on the batted ball data. Like, he crushed the ball last year, absolutely crushed it. And for him to finish with, a 120 OPS plus 120 WRC plus, that's like a really good first baseman, but probably not a top 50 player if you do that for a full season. But I think he can go, 130. And I know he's had some oblique stuff to start the year. So maybe that's been a little bit tricky for him. But, I finalized this list, right as spring training games were kicking off in the first place. So he was a guy that was sort of a 51 type candidate for me, because I really feel like he's just an excellent all-around player.
Yeah. Whenever I look at the defensive first baseman leaderboards over the past few years and where Christian Walker is, you're right. Like, there's no one else even in the realm that it makes me question. It makes me question the numbers more than Christian Walker. Like,
really,
in almost a rude way towards Christian Walker, but I feel like I shouldn't be doing that.
But I feel like the eye test on him completely backs up. Like, he makes some crazy plays.
Former Yankee, this free agency, Christian Walker, didn't happen, and now we'll see him 4 times a year. So that's baseball a little bit. How much do you wrestle with How much do you wrestle with young guys? I guess, or I can rephrase it for obviously a lot of reasons, but I was laughing at he had a monster opening weekend, Jordan Westberg, and prospect profile, like check, like has performed. And I guess for a guy like him, and the other one that blew my mind this offseason that I don't think he was in play for a top 50 list, probably not even a top 100 list, but like Garrett Mitchell's stats, if that human plays his stats over a full season, he could be on this list. So I guess for some of the younger guys, I guess maybe what was like, what's the deepest cut that maybe rattled the chamber that you were like, are they? Like, is it a Jordan Westberg type? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, maybe like a little James Wood in there sprinkled in, maybe a little Patrick Bailey even, just because of the defensive component to his game. So I would say like those two were potential ones. There weren't that many youngish guys who didn't make the list who were super close to doing so. It was more so guys with like track record, but maybe not the upside or like the mystery box element that the young player has, where it's like, well, they could be anything, you know. But yeah, those were a couple names that, you know, you at least kick around in your head a little bit, even if it seems a little bit early, so to say.
Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, it's funny now that, you know, 45 is Alex Bregman, Boston second baseman, which Boston kind of ended that quickly with him not playing there this preseason. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, him playing at Fenway and who he is as a player and consistency wise. But yeah, I guess I was having a moment right before the season. I jumped on the Baby O's bandwagon again because I was like, I think they're just really good. Like it felt like everything went wrong for them last year, and they won 91 games still or whatever it was. Like that, the Orioles never had the like good baseball juice. It felt like at least. And I guess I've been talking to myself about Jordan Westberg because if he was on my team, do I think he could outplay Alex Bregman this year? Maybe. How far is Manny Machado going to start sliding, or is he going to come back up the board? I know he was one of your guys. Did he move the furthest down the board this year, or just a significant slide?
Yes, I mean, Simeon dropped as well. Yeah, I guess it's him and Simeon specifically as far as guys who were on the list last year, and Olsen, who slid a lot but still maintained position.
Yeah, Also, I guess we'll just chip down it, essentially, not hitting every name along the way, but Brent Rooker is a tricky mental exercise because Yordan Alvarez is at 7, and he's Yordan. He won a World Series game. He's one of the best pure hitters the game's ever seen, and he's done that, and he's going to continue to do that, and that's it. Brent Rooker went toe-to-toe with him for the majority of the season last year. And obviously, I'm setting up my own argument for this. But seeing Rooker at 44, hey, how about Brent Rooker going? Yeah. I know you shouted out in the video, but from a Twins scrap heap to a top 50 player in the game, he got the extension. I guess DHs are hard to quantify anyways, or are they? Because it's just pure hitting. But I guess seeing Yordan at 7 and Brent Rooker at 44, if names didn't exist and it was just stats on paper, I feel like those guys would be kind of closer.
They could be. I mean, if you're basing it off of just, 2024, I think Yordan's got a pretty established track record. And at the same time, I don't think Rooker to Yordan is a great comp, but I definitely wrap my head around Rooker versus Schwarber or Rooker versus Ozuna. Those are the other, two big DHs who, were under consideration. And I think, for Rooker to make the list and those two guys not, it is more so like we know who Yordan is, we know who Ozuna is, we know who Schwarber is. Rooker, there's that mystery box element still because we haven't seen him play at this level as long. Could there be another, step forward in 2025?
Right.
Could the warm weather in Sacramento aid him in doing that, So I think that's an element of it as well. And so it's sort of a compromise between, unranked alongside Ozuna and Schwarber versus towards the very tippy top like Jordan.
No Ozuna, huh? And hey, the presenting sponsor of Wake and Jake is Cushy Dreams. Talk about two things that pair well together. It's that the best in legal cannabis, and it just got better. Thanks to our friends at Cushy Dreams. Great THC product that ships directly to you. How nice is that? Stay on the couch. Let it come to you. They've got a new drop, high-powered THCA flower. Smoke it just like the real thing, but this stuff is legal for you. And they've got everything. Please go check them out. Smokable sativa, indica sativa hybrid, whatever you're looking for. Each one comes in 3 different sizes, so you can smoke as much as you want. Click around the website. Go check them out. The gummies are with us kind of everywhere we go at this company. And you can take 20% off all of the D9 gummies, smokable THCA flower, and the entire store when you use code JOHNBOY at checkout, cushydreams.com. Code JOHNBOY, 20% off at checkout.
Mm-hmm.
Bailey. I understand, but it's, God, he was so good for the Braves last year.
And he was the entire offense.
Yeah, and I entered a late fantasy baseball league that I've been teasing people with, and I couldn't believe where Ozuna was, and it's obvious because you have to use your util or DH spot on him, and he can't go anywhere else, but I was still like, maybe this is dumb, maybe this is Jakey Scouts, maybe this isn't Jakey Scouts. God, I don't know if a guy's looked more comfortable DHing, like since Poppy. I know righty, lefty, thick boys, I get it, but he looks like he loves it. It looks like a dream's come true. Like, outfield is done. I'm going to come up here and hit 4 times, and I'm going to mash.
He does like it. I mean, I've heard stories from people who work for the Braves who, when he was playing in the outfield, he was like, next year DH only, and he was right. And he excels in that area. And this goes without saying, that is such a hard thing to do. That's such a hard thing to sit on the bench the entire game, come up, have your 4 ABs, and then execute a plan. You have no feel for the game, sitting in the dugout like that. So that's a really difficult thing, At least Rooker, might cameo in a corner outfield spot like Jordan will. Like Ozuna doesn't do that at all.
Yeah, no, I've been pressing that button pretty hard, and I don't know if it's personality or I'm sure there's a lot of factors that go into it, but like Jock Peterson being a DH, I find as an asset. Like I realize if a player's banged up, and the Yankees have done this game for years where Stanton's clogged the DH spot, so Judge is banged up, and what do we do? And I get that part of it, but also if Jock's gonna have a 900 OPS versus righties like he does every year, or Ozuna's gonna lean into it, to get that offensive profile out of player. Anyways, my DH rant that comes out every other week or so. You want to talk about Riley Greene for a second, because you did in the video, and let him cook.
Yes.
That's all I'll say. Go on, Riley Greene.
Love Riley Greene this year. He's underrated. Like, MLB Network did not have him on their top 50 list. I don't know if a lot of fans out there would have put him on top 50 left. He's, first of all, my number 1 left fielder, and maybe that's not the deepest position, so that's not saying as much as, say, number 1 right fielder, for example. But the guy, he just crushes the ball year over year, and what he's gotten better at is the point of contact, right? Which we know, is correlates with, can he pull the ball in the air? Can he hit a bunch of home runs? He's been able to do that better every year. He's been walking more every year. One thing, and this is really getting nitpicky, that I was sort of digging into was some of the defensive metrics on him, because he was closer to an average-ish corner outfielder last year, when, previously in his career, he played a fair amount of center. And so I was kind of wanted to dig deep on that, like what's going wrong? How do you go from, a passable center fielder to a average corner outfielder? It was a pretty big gap. And what I found was just a lot of trouble with some of the more routine plays, or what StatCast grades as routine plays. And I think that's an encouraging sign, to be honest with you. That's the biggest way nowadays to transform your defensive metrics. It's not, if you have the ability to make the difficult plays and you have trouble with the routine ones, like you start making the routine ones and all of a sudden your metrics get better and you get more WAR, you know? So that's a guy who has potential to improve on defense as well. So young, has the prospect pedigree you talked about, like with Jordan Westberg. Like this was a guy who's a really hype prospect. He's the best position player on a team that was in the playoffs last year. So, I mean, I love Riley Greene. I would consider him to be kind of an MVP dark horse. I don't know, or just, a guy just below the tier of obvious MVP candidates in the American League. I think that highly of him.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, where he landed last year throughout the season, the best all-around player on the Tigers. I know you made a joke. He was the first Tiger to ever enter your Foolish 50 list. Which, is that true? I don't know. Maybe?
I think it's true. Like, think back
crazy.
on it. Who else would it have been? I've been doing this for 5 years for a point of comparison.
Yeah, man. Those are some pretty dark Tiger years, but that's crazy to think about. And then it also, I guess it makes me a little happier because you mentioned Scooble as well, that, the Tigers had what people considered a fluky-ish run, but it's also like, well, okay, so a top position player and a top starting pitcher on their team to go along with everything else. Like there's reason to believe in Tiger. It's not just Hinch, which I know you were giving him the credit.
Right, I was giving Hinch all the credit, and really Andy Ibanez I felt like was the glue guy.
You like his exit velo.
I do.
You just need his launch. I remember, Bailey, we've been courting each other for a little bit now. I remember one of my first tasks was like asking for potential breakout guys, and you threw out an Andy Ibanez, and I was like, whoa, that's Bailey. Come on.
That's not going to be a click.
That's the people do not want that. Yeah, Riley Greene. I don't want to throw my guy under the bus. I forget if MLB Network was on, but someone called Riley Greene the face of the franchise, and Jimmy just let out face of a franchise. and hey, it's a little bit, let's do it again, Riley Greene. And yeah, I think there's something to the Tigers in that ballpark there's something unsexy about it, or maybe we just haven't seen really good baseball there in like a decade, that maybe Riley Greene will become the face of that. And let's see where the numbers land this year. Cause I was going to say Kyle Tucker, but Kyle Tucker steals bases, and he's Kyle Tucker that, hey, 23-year-old with a 5.5 WAR B-WAR season. Like we can work with that in Detroit. Who of the olds are you most worried about?
Freddie,
I am
Freddie
too.
over there at 13. Yeah.
I mean,
it's
dirty.
It seems bad because, and I don't know where I would have ranked him if he hadn't had that World Series. I mean, that World Series is data,
Right.
He hit a bunch of homers against, really good competition. I know you're taking a sip. Well, what's in there?
Come on.
But, he's like, they're doing like NBA style load management with him at the moment.
Yeah.
He's not playing the day game after the night game. I guess I just wrongly assumed at the time of ranking that, his ankle was terrible. He'll get surgery and then he'll come back in the spring and the ankle will be okay and he won't look like a hobbled old man, but he still does,
Yeah.
So that I find particularly worrisome among the olds there. I think he's probably, I may have made a mistake and ranked him too high based on what happened in the World Series potentially, but we'll see, because he's still Freddie Freeman,
Right. And if he's, that Dodgers team has one aspiration this year, that, hey, again, it's where the exercise itself is a losing exercise, because, okay, what if it was players you wanted to see or players you wanted to see in the World Series? Like maybe you have Freddie right there. Maybe he would be above Jose Ramirez in that situation. Beebs, I think we lost the list.
Do people watch this on YouTube? I still don't, like, this is an audio medium for some.
It's wild. Me and Jim are currently I wouldn't say at odds, but it's a juggle of people consuming stuff via audio or via video. But I think, as you know, YouTube's just easier for data tracking, AdSense, everything that everyone on YouTube, hello. And sometimes I think they like to look at our faces, Get your face out there more, Bailey. Get BBD's giggles in the corner. Like, that's what the people want. Yeah, I was having maybe that should be an episode, my preseason panic moments. Because I was having a moment with Freddie where I was like, first baseman who took a step back last year, not significant, who's turning 35. Like, again, it turns into if you erase names and you just lay out a situation, you could get less excited about it. But Freddie still deserves to be, and I for the past couple years, I've said he could be the best all-around hitter. It's, Judge, Shohei, obviously take the nod there. And I have another compliment for you, Bailey. And I don't know if you heard this from somewhere else or if I'm just an idiot. Juan Soto, former Yankee, former Padre, Nat for a little bit. You said it best. He's the best hitter at not getting out.
Yes, he is. That is a very basic way of looking at it. That's sort of an inverse way of describing his on-base percentage, but outs kill alleys, outs kill rallies. That
right.
They kill innings where runs score. You make an out in the middle of it, and he doesn't make outs as often as anybody.
I don't know if that's a Baileyism, but I found that brilliant. I constantly say, like, Soto's at-bats are the best at-bats I've ever seen, and the OBP and the walks are the big situations, and it's just I think that's the best way to say it. Of all hitters, I guess that's the way we normally phrase it. Of all hitters, he is the toughest to get out.
Yeah.
He doesn't get out.
He doesn't get out. He just doesn't. You watch the game, you're like, how does this guy doesn't get out?
Like, you just see some at-bats versus relievers, and you're like, you're not getting him out. And that's your job. He landed at 4 on your list, so we still have some time to get up there. Catchers. You had William Contreras a little ahead of Cal Raleigh. Again, I think if you flip those two, I don't think anyone would flinch. That we did this, especially we built our ideal lineup that we'll get to in a little bit, and we had the very same discussion of, would you the switch hitting defensive pop of Cal Raleigh, and how much does he get hurt by Seattle's fake stadium apparently, versus William Contreras, who we know is Big Bro, and he is potentially exceeding him, especially with some of the defensive stuff. And Adley snuck on the list. So give me a little bit on the catchers.
Yeah, you mentioned the stadium in Seattle. Raleigh's, and I didn't realize it maybe till after making the list, what a big home-away split guy he is. Even compared to someone like Julio, who's the other, main successful hitter in Seattle the last few years. Raleigh's got some pretty intense splits between home and away. He does not hit well in Seattle. And for me, it's a question between him and Contreras of how much is the gap between platinum glove defense at catcher versus average defense at catcher? Because Cal gives you platinum glove and Contreras probably gives you about closer to average. The thing about Cal versus Contreras offensively is I think that Cal is what he is. He's going to hit 30 homers. It's going to be low average. There's going to be walks to get the on-base percentage to a respectable amount. With Contreras, there's more upside because he just hits the ball so hard, and he's got one of those batted ball profiles where if he could just get it in the air a little bit more, he could also hit 25, 30 home runs in a season. Right now, he's more so a guy who hits like 280 average wise. So if you like a catcher who hits 280 in a world where everyone else hits 240, like there's a lot of appeal in that as well. So I went with Contreras ahead because I just feel like there's more offensive upside there than Cal. I think Cal's pretty much like figured out what he is and does that. Whereas Contreras, like, if he can elevate the ball more, he can hit more homers still. And then Adley, the catcher position for me, it's like, it was about buying into a narrative for him, where he was off to a fantastic start. He had a great first half, and then he was, hit by like a foul tipped pitch right on the meat of his hand and just had a really bad last few months of the season, like truly awful.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of goes with what you said with how impressed you are with Baltimore in general. With a lot of things did go wrong. Gunner even had a not so great second half relative to how amazing his first half was. And so Adley snuck in there for me. He's a guy who this is like kind of a make or break year for him in terms of can he get back to that level that he showed his first couple years? Because if not, then he wouldn't be on the list and may never be on the list again, to be honest with you. Yeah, and then I'll throw out another name there. A guy I was looking at a lot closer than people would think who did not make the list. Alejandro Kirk in Toronto is a guy I think very highly of. The defensive metrics like him a lot over the last 3 years. He finally gets to be just the catcher there. There's no 1A, 1B. Jansen's gone. Moreno's been gone. Remember it was those three and it was Toronto like, what do I do with all these catchers? Like that situation's been sorted out. Kirk got the extension, so he's the guy now. And he's a Silver Slugger winner at like 22. He's younger than Adley. I think this is a potential guy who could sneak on at some point. But I think it would be too speculative if he were included on the list this year because he's been a below average hitter, not for a catcher, but for a position player the last couple of years.
Yeah, Kirky, 2022 was a couple moons ago that I gotta see it offensively. I love Kirk. Again, listed 5'8", 245, and I think you can mess with those numbers a little bit in either direction for height and weight. Contreras, Cal, man, I know you said it. The home road career splits for Cal Raleigh, a 663 OPS at home. Reminder, this is the home stadium that multiple articles were written this offseason how hitters can't hit there because there's a wind tunnel between the mound and the plate, and you can't see the batter's eye, and all the ghost of Edgar Martinez and all of this. 663 OPS at home, below league average. 809 OPS on the road. That, yeah, I agree. Cal Raleigh's really good. This is the top 50 players list. Cal Raleigh's offensive profile is the pitchers figuring out one thing away from being like a scary profile, from like a 280 on base, and we're hitting just one of those, I don't want to say empty homer batting profiles, but kind of. He's not there, but baseball can happen quick. Or even, I'll leave injury out with the Adley situation. But William Contreras, I don't know, if those guys were traded for each other today, and William Contreras was hitting in Seattle for his home games, and Cal Raleigh was hitting in Milwaukee for his home games, I think they probably flip. And you'd prefer Cal Raleigh this season, which, again, that's just a weird mental. Should we be factoring that in? I guess at the end of the day, they're playing where they're playing. So as a ball player, those are the stats they're going to get. But that's disgusting.
Yeah, that's the type of split you'd expect to see a Rockies player have, just in reverse, right? That's a pretty insane split.
God, we're sorry, Cal. But hey, they paid him. Good for Cal. We're happy for our king. How about a couple of these pitchers in the middle? You and your godfather, Eno Saris, love Logan Gilbert. I like Logan Gilbert. Again, we're talking top 50 players in the game. I guess I still have a little bit of Mariners pitcher party where I'm like, I don't know, I really like George Kirby some days. And I know, Castillo, I think some of his stuff was declining, but you still have to respect Luis Castillo. And it's like, Brian Wu pitches like that. Sometimes the ball just David Cohn told a couple stories about he'll never throw. There was a day when he never threw a ball with a scuff on it again, because at first he was like, when you're a young pitcher, you got a ball with a scuff, you're like, ooh, I can take advantage of this. He said he threw a ball and it just went flying away from him. Some of Brian Wu's two-seamers, the ball takes off. It doesn't look like an arm should do that. That I guess maybe I hurt my Logan Gilbert love by him being a part of the Mariners pitching festival. But you and Eno love him.
Yeah, I think the separator is the secondary stuff. All those guys have really good fastballs. Brian Woo's, it looks like when you're skipping rocks. That's what it like. It goes and then it
Yes.
just takes a little skip and it skips up and away, and you go, oh, that's what it looks like when he throws the baseball. But with Gilbert, I think it's the secondary stuff. The gyro slider that he throws is just absolute filth. And especially how it plays off his fastball. And then he's a guy who's, kind of developed the splitter as well over the last couple of years. And I think, with the way the Mariners handle things, they target really good fastball qualities first and foremost. It's in all their starters. And they think, oh, we can probably add in terms of the secondary stuff. And I don't think that's a bad way to do it necessarily. But yeah, I mean, his secondary stuff is it's just a cut above Woo or Kirby's. And then, Castillo, like you said, was a guy who was in consideration for the list last year, but the stuff seems to be declining some.
Yeah, I know I'm jumping around, and we, BBD, Jim, Joe's McFly, and a crew of us, we went down to Yankees spring training for a weekend, and we didn't know what to put on the TV, and we put on an old Mike Mad Dog and Francesa. They were interviewing George Steinbrenner in the 90s.
This is like the most stereotypical story I've ever heard about Yankees fans. Like, oh, we don't know what to watch. Let's watch the radio guy, George Steinbrenner,
It gets better. Well, it gets worse. The first night, because it was one of those, it was an Airbnb set up that the TV, like, it's one of those TVs you turn on and you're like, oh, nothing's going to come on the screen that we want to watch. Like, the options were tough. I think Jimmy put on an old roast, and when I say old roast, I mean like
this aired in the 60s.
So
they're making some biting political commentary.
You were watching the roast of like Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor was like, again, this was it was old.
I think he grew up watching
was
this.
There.
Yeah.
Was Rickles there?
Was
Rickles really laying into them?
Rickles was there and like in his peak.
Oh, nice.
Like
yeah.
healthy.
Well, I would have watched that. I'd rather watch that than the Mad Dog, unfortunately.
Well, so that was the first night, and that was travel day, and everyone's exhausted, and everyone just kind of looked at each other like, okay, so we're going to bed. Like, we can't watch this. So then the next night, yeah, I think we Yankee baited a little bit. We put on World Series highlights.
We're like, YouTube works, all right.
Yeah, the YouTube was the only thing we had, and it's like, well, we can't watch any more Bailey videos, so we went Yankees, and then, yeah, I enthuse everyone to watch it. Mike and the Mad Dog, 1990, so the Yankees are like buns, and Steinbrenner's not liked by the fan base yet. Hour, uncut, and they just rip on him. And Steinbrenner's also nails. Steinbrenner has like spring training stats, like off the top of his head. This is before the internet. So I don't know. That's like burned in my brain now. So there's a little bit of me that I think is just going to start talking more old sports radio-y. Because the question that I prefaced with all of that for no reason was, again, as I'm reviewing this list, Bailey, it's a big Dodger year. And how tempting was it to put a lot more Dodgers? Because, like, Yamamoto's been nothing but great since his first start overseas, ironically. That, like, I don't know. I watched Glass Now last night, and he was filthy. Like, again, one of those, how many baseball players could we put in 1998 and they'd be, like, the best player? Like, Glass Now clears. I guess how tempting was it to put so many Dodgers on this list?
Yeah, and it would have been from the pitching, like you said, right? So Snell is the representative from their rotation, but you could make an argument for Glass Now just as much. And I think actually there are probably some parallels with Snell and Glass Now. The main difference being that, Snell has managed to get through 180 innings a couple times and win a couple Cy Youngs. That's really the only difference, though. I mean, inning to inning, Glass Now is just as good as him, if not better. Yamamoto, it's interesting too. He was also close to making it last year, and I would have been much more inclined to put Yamamoto than Roki Sasaki, I think. He came over much more polished. Sasaki's interesting because his fastball last year at NPB was hittable for those guys. Like, it was, he's not like progressed his game like you would expect based on what we saw, in 2022 when he was throwing like back-to-back perfect games, right. And, or 2023, like World Baseball Classic, just shutting everyone down, throwing like 102. So he's kind of a different one. But yeah, I mean, this is a big Dodger year, and I think we should probably hit on one of the bigger disagreements that my list has with both common consensus and as well as MLB Network, and that's Mookie Betts.
We'll get right back into it a second with our friends from DraftKings. The weather is warming up, thank God, which means it's time to head to the ballpark, root for the home team, or watch from your couch and place some bets at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, they are offering new customers $150 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5 when you use code JMSports. If you love the thrill of live betting, DraftKings has you covered. I've been on the pitch speed game on a little bit of a heater, not going to lie. Hey, if you know that breaker's coming, why not get in on it? And they have so much more. If it's not available yet in your state, they still have their daily fantasy games at DraftKings with a shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code JMSports. Bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's code JMSports only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Talk about Mook Man then.
So, I mean, I love the Mook Man, and the Mook Man is off to a very hot start this year, and the Mook Man might make me look like an idiot by June, you know? Yeah. So he's ranked at number 16. I think most people would probably have him ranked, at least before he had the illness and apparently lost a bunch of weight, in the top 5. I mean, probably he would be 5th. I think there's a pretty clear cut, top 3 or 4, and then he's probably up next for a lot of people. And it was just, for me, trying to use underlying stats in a year where he also broke his hand in the middle of it. And that's tough, but his barrel rate was cut in half, that is significant. Barrels are one of the most, that's a sticky stat. So that tends to stick year over year, that it just has a huge correlation with any sort of success, any sort of power. And, he's added a lot of, muscle over the last couple of years and hit for career highs in homers. He hit more homers in 2023 than he did ever with Boston, and he had a 10 WAR MVP season with Boston. And so there are guys like that I just kind of worry about. It's well, now you've sold out your game to power to some degree because you're not as fast as you used to be. You're not necessarily a scrappy hitter the way you used to be, and when you age and that power slips, I don't entirely know what we're left with. I still don't like the shortstop thing for him.
Right.
You and I have talked about that before. I mean, yes, he's moving up the defensive spectrum, but this guy he's Roberto Clemente in right field. He's unbelievable, right. So I came out as the low man on Mookie, and I think probably I did that 2 or 3 years ago and looked stupid for it as well. I think there's probably one year I didn't have him in the top 10 and he had a monster year. So it may very well happen again, but my chief concern was the bat speed's going down. Anything related to power seems to be going down. And if he doesn't have the power, then what is he?
Yeah, it's betting against Mookie is a foolish task. We're back in 5. Yeah, man, I don't know what to tell you on the other side. As you well know, I struggled with this dude should not be playing shortstop, and then he kind of broke me, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. Be as first ballot and inner circle as you can be, Mookie. Literally break the game in any concept of what we should believe in. And the Dodgers are kind of doing that. And hey, if we really need to give him a day, Miggy Rowe, get out there, field a couple balls. He's one of the nicest guys I've seen in baseball. Yeah, I said it with Freddie. From the 2023 8.6 WAR season, last year 4.8 in 116 games, but the OPS was 863, and I don't know. I've just decided, there's two sides to every coin. If Mookie Betts is the half face from the Dark Knight movie guy, it always just lands on the right side. What's that guy's name?
It's Two-Face.
Two-Face. Mookie's quarter always lands on the good side. And I was laughing because the story that I started writing for myself when Mookie lost 20-something pounds, and you're like, what? He doesn't have that. And you're wondering, okay, what voodoo is going to happen to this Dodgers super team? I already can picture the article in May that's like, Mookie's one of the best defensive short. He feels great on his feet because he actually, from losing that 20 pounds. And you're like,
well, and can I say this too? Like the weight he lost, his weight he added like 2 years ago, like went to drive line, like added muscle. Like now you just look at him, he just looks like the Mookie that was in Boston that was just slapping the ball everywhere, just gap power, everything. Yeah, I guess I know there's been a lot of hoops talk. I apologize for the amount of hoops talk in this episode. I guess like I'm afraid I'm turning into the guy who's like, Draymond Green can't be a center. This lineup's too small, and then they just win like 4 championships and you're like, I can't believe that worked.
Right. I was sitting courtside. Draymond Green is 6'1". Like, okay.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Easy Simmons. He got me good in one of their recent episodes. That he kept just hammering the table saying that Lou Dort is 6'2", and everyone was like, "No, he's not, Bill. Like he's 6'4".
Well, he was probably saying like Lou Dort's like a sneaky top 7 6'2" guy.
Yeah, there's always an angle. I no hate on my end. They are my come down on the subway listening, and it's where I get pretty much all my NBA knowledge. All my NBA knowledge. I sound almighty saying that. So much this league. Let's get back into the list because that's the whole concept. And it's funny because there's really not a ton of discussion that needs to happen at the top. Like Shohei has broken baseball, pitches both ways. Judge is probably gonna break his own AL home run record if he plays 162 games. Gunnar. I was interested to say, I think the popular opinion would be like Lindor can come back down to earth a little bit from last year.
Yeah.
And you were kind of like, there's numbers that say Lindor might have been unlucky last year.
Yeah, I mean, a guy with really good batted ball data from last year. And I mentioned that he had weird bookends to his regular season, right? He had a cold April, and then he had the back stuff in September towards the end of the year. And just in the middle of that, he was, I mean, kind of tit for tat with Ohtani in a lot of ways in that MVP race until the last 2 weeks of the season when he didn't really play and Ohtani just went ballistic, and so that made it a non-discussion. But yeah, and I mean, I think the gap between him and Gunnar defensively is still pretty significant. I think Gunnar's still kind of a work in progress at shortstop. He's passable for sure, but Lindor's, been one of, if not the best defensive shortstops of his generation, basically. So yeah, I'm in on Lindor at 5. He leads the NL in WAR the last 3 years. I think that's a pretty good stat for you to tell you how good he is. And yeah, we'll just have to see. He could come down crashing to earth, but I have him at 5. I think just deserved.
Yeah, I guess some quick hitters before we segue to the dream team lineup that we made last week. Corey Seager, I thought it's interesting. We do forget him too much, and I bought some Texas Rangers stock this year, and he obviously has to be a part of that. And I was laughing because I will pair him up with number 15, Bryce Harper. There was a time when Harper and Trout, Harper was kind of the injury guy, and now he has been, as you mentioned, kind of steady Eddie, for the lamest term I can find in my brain. The first baseman, Bryce Harper, which I guess it's maybe the last time I can say this, but people don't talk about how smoothly and well he's done that transition. But yeah, I hope we wake up in 5 years and we talk about Corey Seager having 4 of those be 140-game seasons. And because when we do, we will look up and say he's one of the best shortstops of all time easily.
Can I tell you my thing about Seager that I've just been marinating on? I mean, he is a first base bat that plays shortstop. Like that is insanely valuable. And the thing that I keep thinking about with him is because as he's getting up there into his 30s and he's had some injury-filled years, he has the potential to do what very few shortstops could ever really do, and that is to move down the defensive spectrum. He could play. There's a somewhere out there. There's a 37, 38-year-old version of Corey Seager who is playing first base, who still hits like Corey Seager and is like just using that to really, stay healthy and put up the counting stats necessary to cap off a Hall of Fame career with sort of a late career surge like that. And you look through the history of the game, like not a lot of shortstops have the bat that ages well enough that they can really move to be even a third baseman, much less a first baseman or something like that. I mean, I think Ripken played some third base, right? Ernie Banks. I mean, we're talking Ernie Banks here, like shortstop to first base. Like that is so rare. And he could do that because he has a first base bat and a shortstop, and he has this approach that is just so unique. He's just uber aggressive in the zone. There's pretty much no one more aggressive in the zone than he is. He does not take hittable pitches, and yet he can still take his walks in terms of pitches outside of the zone. So I mean, his approach is just brilliant. So I have high hopes for Seager. I hope he can stick at shortstop for a few years, stay healthy, but he is on a rate basis the best offensive shortstop we've seen since A-Rod. I mean, he is a cut above, and really I think I even cited the stat, like since integration, like it's A-Rod and then him in terms of, OPS plus or WRC plus or whatever you prefer.
Yeah. And he just doesn't get talked about like that. Like he was a part of the Dodgers, like shrapnel of, the first Dodgers iteration of these guys are all so good, but he kind of gets banged up to the Texas Rangers team. And like Adolis puts on a show, and what happened to Evan Carter, and we'll get the next chapter on that. But yeah, Seager he's all time, and we kind of don't think of him in that light. That he I hope we get, like I said, a couple of those 140 game seasons, because I think people remember. And yeah, that is, it's interesting. He's been fine at shortstop. I was pretty tough on him when he was a Dodger, but with Texas, I think you said it. You're like, it's not always pretty, but he kind of gets it done. Because I also had him penciled in as my Yankees third baseman for a couple years there, and that did not happen. Let's see. I think I've got one or two more fake burning questions. If this is a good one. If Bobby Witt, Gunnar Henderson, and Aaron Judge didn't exist, how much higher on this list would Jarren Duran be? Because let's say there's that alternate universe where he finishes with 8.7 WAR last year. So then it would be him and Soto, which he outwar Soto. And then it's Jose Ramirez, Vladdy, like in a lot of, I don't want to say normalish years, but that's in a potential MVP season. And I know you talked about regression, and I get the other side of it, but there's a world where I think Jarren Duran comes in at 21 on this list, and he's the defending AL MVP.
Yeah, I think Simeon's kind of a good comp here. Prime Simeon's a good comp, because here's a guy who has put up the WAR of an MVP winner. Here's a guy who has been an MVP finalist, and yet in some ways I would make the argument like Marcus Semien has never come close to winning MVP. Like, has he ever received a first place vote for MVP? Right. He's been in the top 5, but if you have never received a first place vote, I don't really know if you came that close. Right. I mean, with the 8.7 WAR, like, you're completely right. Like, that is probably above the median of what an MVP winner has done the last 10 years or so, right? Like, there's a lot of 6, 7, 8 WAR MVPs, and he's there at 8.7. But also, the way he accrued that WAR is not really in a way that's in line with how people vote for MVP. It's a lot of base running metrics. It's a lot of defensive metrics. But yeah, I mean, I think around that spot in the 20s makes sense. And I think it'd be around where you might rank Semien after, he had a couple of those seasons where he comes up with a nice MVP-4 and an MVP-3 on the Baseball Reference page.
Marcus Semien, 3 MVP third places and no first place vote. That's wild.
Because it's Ohtani and Judge. What's he supposed to do? Who's voting for Marcus Semien over them?
I know. It's just it's one of those weird. Yeah, I mean, it's almost rude to Semien. Or I guess it feels rude, but it's also not at the same time. Like, you were the third best player, dog. Yeah. He got Ohtani'd one year. He took every first place vote. I think, what was it? The other, Bregman got a couple. What was that, 2019? Some juicy balls. Trout won. That's funny.
Yeah. Like when you finish, can I say this? When you finish third in MVP voting, you basically get to go on MLB Network and do like a Zoom with Greg Amsinger right before they announce who won first. Like that's what he won.
Marcus,
he got to do that a couple of times.
You had an incredible season.
Yeah. Which I would love to do someday. I would love to be so good at my job that Greg Amsinger says, "Hey, great job, buddy," at the end of every year.
That means you did something right. Any other closing notes? I feel bad because we talked about a ton of players while also missing some. It's crazy because I'm also riding the Vladdy bandwagon, and it's like, is there any chance he just pulled the wool over our eyes again?
Yes, there is a
real
chance,
right?
Yeah.
Yet and maybe this segues perfectly into the lineup from last week. We did land on putting Vladdy as our first baseman. What if Vladdy did?
Yeah, I know he could.
But he's not.
Because here's the thing. Because here's what happened. Because in 2023, he had, again, so I know I keep talking about really nice batted ball data. And I was like, oh, this poor guy's getting unlucky, right? And then in 2024, he has the year that I thought he deserved for the most part in 2023. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Let's move him up. But what if 2024 is the lucky year,
Right?
Right? Then we've got a problem. I mean, this guy's exhibited a lot of season to season variance. And he's not the only guy on this list for you guys who has. I said Ketel Marte is kind of in the same boat where it's like, at his best, we've seen this guy be amazing, but he hasn't always been able to follow up season to season his best performances. So we'll just kind of have to see there.
Yeah. And
so do you want to intro this list here?
Yeah, we'll jump right into it. So this is the roster that we came up with, the perfect 26-man, we called it. And yeah, we ended up setting the lineup, and then bullpen got a little sloppy. I will get ahead of this one. If I could do it again, I would have Mason Miller on the team. That was the number one comment. I was supporting relief pitchers by the last 3 years, so he didn't really pop up. And I don't know, the Athletics play in Sacramento now, so that's my bad. I love Mason Miller. He's probably on over Reisel. Anyways, with that, we ended up having fun when it was time to build the lineup because that's a real. With this crew, there's so many ways to go with it, and we didn't talk about him on the list. I didn't realize the whole world was in on Jackson Merrill. I thought that was a little.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little hotter than it apparently is because I think did Buster Olney compare him to Freddie Freeman or someone did that, and the Jackson Merrill was at 19 on your list or something like that. So if you want to start there, or start wherever you want with all of this.
Yeah, well, I will start at Merrill because I think it's interesting. And people are saying, feedback from my list was, how is Churio at 50 and Merrill at 17?
Right.
Like, I think to the naked eye, they're very similar players. They're both named Jackson. They both young. They both came up, had amazing rookie seasons. I mean, that's what more can you say? And I mean, the thing with Merrill is that I found so unique is I comped him to Julio, who was, I think, probably the other guy you would have considered. I'm sure you probably flip-flopped before you landed on Merrill between the two. And then the other guy I comped him to actually was Michael Harris II, who won NL Rookie of the Year the same year Julio won in the AL. And because they were both like young, good center fielders who came up, had amazing rookie years, and but had some obvious flaws in the game offensively and mostly related to chase. Jackson Merrill chases a lot. Julio chases a lot. Michael Harris II chases a lot. And we've seen kind of the years since, right, that Harris and Julio haven't quite been able to replicate offensively what they did their first year, right? They're just a little tick behind there. And so the fear is, well, what if Merrill does the same? Well, I think for me, like, when I dug into the data, it's like, Merrill just makes so much contact, and he makes so much good contact that's like his chase doesn't even matter as much, just because it doesn't prevent him from making good contact the way it does a lot of guys who chase a lot. And he's also, it's a little bit of that Seager thing too that I talked about, where it's like, well, yeah, he chases a lot, but he's also super aggressive in the zone, Like, I don't want a guy that's passive in the zone that chases a lot, like that's just bad plate discipline. He's aggressive is what he is. And so like Julio's a guy, because I'm sure, again, Julio's probably like, your other option at center field. Julio's a guy who, based on the fact that he actually doesn't make that much contact per swing, but he is aggressive, like that kind of masks his strikeout rate a little bit. Like his strikeout rate, he'll run it like, 24, 25% maybe with like a really low, like a 6% walk rate or something like that. And if he swung as often as, let's say, Aaron Judge or someone like that, or Juan Soto, then maybe, he's running probably like, over 30. Whereas with Merrill, it's more like he makes so much contact that strikeout rate's going to run like sub 20. You can hem and haw about the lack of walks, but I mean, he makes contact and he makes great contact. So I think the biggest question is probably between him and Julio is there a defensive gap? Because we've only seen 1 year of Merrill in center and it graded well, but Julio, I think, is like really established as one of the better defensive center fielders. So I think my bullishness on Merrill is actually not as popular as you may think. I think you guys are going out on a limb, and I think you did the right thing because my list agrees.
Yeah, and I mean, when we were doing this exercise, it was also, it's dream world, right? So I want righty lefty and switch balance. I wanted a few lefties in the bullpen. Like, I wanted to treat this, we're really doing this for a full year and winning games. And yeah, again, you end up in a great place because we put Julio on the team just like him and Jackson Merrill could be the platoon, because everyone else there's not really questions with. The only goof was putting Austin Hedges as the backup catcher. But hey, Bruce Bochy says, and Terry Francona, and that's who I listen to,
right,
that he keeps the clubhouse going, that, yeah, it would be the catchers we talked about. And then it was just funny because Mookie Betts ended up being a bench player, and that's, again, if anyone could get mad about that, they properly could, because could he get, in a real world, could he start at third over Jose Ramirez for a day? I don't know, but that's the fun in this, and then Jordan got a bench spot. I guess we stumbled into the top of the lineup being like, well, shoot, man, I mean, it was tempting to be like Soto, Judge, Ohtani, or even Ohtani, Judge, Soto, and then you start looking at some of the on bases and batting, and you bring up all these guys' stats, and you're blown away, dude. Like, what Bobby Witt did last year is nuts, and we're penciling him to do that again. That I ended up putting him at the top of the lineup, and looking at it, I still don't know. I don't know if I love it or if it's the right move, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, a little lineup construction talk.
Yes.
That's what people love, some lineup construction talk. I will say this, just like to give sort of the sabermetric nerd perspective, lineup construction doesn't mean that much. It's a great thing to yell at beat writers about on Twitter. Like, that's what it exists for.
That's why we have it.
I love to get mad at local beat writers whenever they tweet a lineup and I don't like it. I say, that's your fault.
Pablo Reyes 8th?
Yeah. But unless you're intentionally doing it badly on purpose, there's probably not a huge margin in terms of like how you rearrange these guys. I will say, Judge is your best hitter and you're batting him third. I would maybe want him in a top 2 spot. I don't, like you want to give your best hitters the most plate appearances, So I would maybe argue like Soto lead off because, as we said, he doesn't make outs.
Right.
I'd maybe go Soto, Judge, Witt, Ohtani, something like that, But I also understand, like, you've been listening to too much Mad Dog, so you think that, leadoff guys have to steal bases.
You got to speed. You got to take the first pitch.
Right.
And you slap the ball the other way, and that's how you play baseball. It was, I guess for me, it was just again, it's a funny exercise, but it was weird because I was like, okay, well, Soto, like you said, doesn't get out. But then Juan Soto leadoff felt weird, and it's like, well, Shohei hits leadoff, and he does that. And, I mean, if we're doing this for clicks, I mean, opening a lineup, Shohei, Judge, Soto. And then I was just having a dumb moment where I'm like, I just watched Soto and Judge be so good with Soto in front of Judge, because then you have the guy driving him in. None of it really matters, if we're being honest, because they're all legendary baseball players.
Can I point out one more thing? Like,
Please.
you guys are adhering to like classic managerial righty lefty righty.
Yes.
Like, but does it matter when it's Bobby Witt Jr., Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, and Shohei Ohtani? I think they can hit both sides of the platoon.
I don't know,
does it matter? I don't know. I don't know.
I guess if I'm the pitcher on the other side, I'm having a bad time. But when they go to their bullpen, Bailey, I can't leave that Witt Judge lane,
Oh my gosh, here comes Anthony Bonda. He's got to face Ohtani and Soto back to back.
Hey,
they're
man,
going to get out of this inning.
I don't think anyone wants to face Bonda right now. The Dodgers are nuts. Yeah, I guess so. Pitcher wise, you would have your guy Logill on there though.
So based on how I ranked it, I would have Gilbert and Crochet rather than Snell and Burns.
Right.
And so I'm going to talk about Crochet because we already talked Gilbert. I mean, Crochet's winning the Cy Young this year, guys.
No,
Like, I don't know.
Bailey.
Like, I don't
It's
know
Fenway. His ERA is going to be 4.2.
Okay, you're right. The Fenway and the
Mad Dog, get out of me.
But can I say? But also, they fixed the defense behind him very nicely. That was very kind of them. They're setting up for it a little bit as well. But I mean, Crochet is just. I mean, it's just filthy. And like I said, with some of the Skubal stuff, because Skubal hadn't thrown 150 innings in a season before last year, and then he goes and wins Cy Young. And what I've learned is like I even like that Crochet was babied last year post TJ. Like when he was averaging like 3 innings a start, in the second half for Chicago because they didn't trade him, but they wanted to keep him healthy because they knew they were going to. Like it's like yes, you can add on some innings on top of that. He can get to 160, 170. And like on an inning by inning basis, like he's better than Burns and he's better than Snell. I mean, just the strikeout rate and the walk rate from last year tell you everything you need to know. I mean, he was the best in terms of those two, strikeout rate minus walk rate. And the other thing I'll say is like, if you have, workload concerns at all, like, why would you have Snell? And you shouldn't have workload concerns because the sneaky thing is that you also have Ohtani, so I think there's an implied 6-man rotation to some extent here. So yeah, I mean, I think you have to have Crochet because he's going to win the Cy Young Award this year.
Yeah, yes, with pitchers, I see the argument. I might be Snell's number one guy. I just think he's gotten better in the second half of every season of baseball he's ever pitched in. That, like you noted, like sure, him and Glass now, there's some fun comps there for different cats. But if I get over 130 innings, the guy wins the Cy Young. And I don't know. I believe in it. I think it broke baseball a little bit because everyone's like, well, he's walking guys, and when pitchers walk guys, that's bad. But it's like, well, I think he's just looking for count leverage, and his stuff is so nasty, he can get himself out of the situation that, again, I think it's good that there's really only one Blake Snell right now. There's other pitchers that walk guys. If every pitcher turns into Blake Snell, that's a problem because then
yes,
we're going back to almost 3 true outcomes a little bit. I don't know. I'm a Snell guy, and I will, if he gives me a full season, which, last year the Giants thing got weird, and when he came back, he was that guy again, just unhittable. I forget his last 11 starts, the ERA was at like 1 flat again. That, yeah, if he ends May with an ERA in the 3s, like he's
going to win the Cy Young.
He wins the Cy Young,
yeah.
And that's insane to me. That's insane.
Yeah. No, you're completely correct. If he throws X amount of innings, I don't know if it's 170, 180, and he's not terrible in the first half, he's going to win the Cy Young.
And he's just another guy on the Dodgers, basically. I love his career first half 3.98 ERA. Career second half, 2.32.
Yeah.
Just silly. Bailey, we talked a lot of ball, man. And I love it. And I think the people love it too. So I'm happy to be back with you. Appreciate it. I one last thing. This is one of my favorite Bailey games. Give me your prospect porn. Give me the one random name of someone that you are just hype about that nobody really knows.
Oh, man, that's a good one. I'm trying to think with some proximity to the big leagues as well, like someone you could see it at some point.
You were my first, and hey, maybe I just don't know ball, but on our fake trade episode, you brought up Junior Caminero for Shohei, and you were like, you don't do that trade.
I still think you don't,
and I think you're right.
Yeah,
but yeah, and then you have other deep cuts that don't come to that don't come to my Fangraphs top 10 prospects, and that's the one I'm looking for.
You know, I'm gonna give a guy that's not that deep, but I just think he's like nasty and could affect the season. So the White Sox pitching is worth paying attention to.
Wow.
They've had a nice first trip through the rotation. They don't have any name brand recognition, but they have some young guys. I think Burke can do some good stuff, and Cannon can do some good stuff. But the guy who could get thrown into the mix is, I think, ranked as one of, if not their top prospect, but it's Noah Schultz.
Okay.
Just filthy stuff, and I think really could. I mean, I'm not saying the White Sox are going to be a playoff team or anything like that, but like he could show out in the second half and have you thinking, for by the time we're getting to 2026. So I'm gonna say Noah Schultz is my prospect shout out.
Okay. I feel like I'm familiar with the name. I don't want to shame myself in that. 6'10".
Yeah.
That's always stinks.
That's prototypical. I mean, it's taller than prototypical, but it's if you were starting to build a guy in the lab, you'd say, well, 6'10" lefty seems like a decent way to start,
God, he last year at AA, 16 starts to the tune of a 1.48. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We are all on the Schultz hive. Bailey, you're the best, man. Anything we need to hype up besides the YouTubes?
Yeah, I mean the YouTubes, right? I got some fun stuff coming on both YouTube channels, both Foolish Baseball and Foolish Bailey. I think my most recent video about Brian Wu is worth checking out. So check that. There's some good explanations about how release point and arm angle really factors into how we talk about pitchers. And you'll learn a lot.
Awesome. Bailey, appreciate you. We'll probably link up later this month, and I think we're doing the twice a month thing. So we'll figure it out as we go.
Little bi-weekly Bailey.
That's good. Oh, I did need to give you credit on what was it, 2B or not 2B when talking about
pretty good.
Second base. That was pretty good. That's in my lane.
But also it was 2B or not to be. That is the Bregman.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's watching train videos good. All right, Bailey. Appreciate you.